Amazing moment, poor mom helps crying boy, transformative twist revealed by his CEO dad. Stumbling out of the diner, Sarah felt the weight of fatigue drape over her shoulders like a heavy blanket. Her shift had dragged, each minute stretching into eternity. She was a single mother in her late 30s, working 2 jobs to provide for her 2 children. The chill of the night air pierced her skin, but her mind was too overwhelmed to register the cold. Just as she turned the corner, her heart stopped when she spotted a boy, no older than 11, sitting alone on a bench, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. A magnetic pull drew her toward him. Wasn't he that what she fought for every day? A warm environment for her kids? As she approached, the moonlight caught his tear-streaked face. "Hey there," she said gently, kneeling down beside him. Just sitting next to him felt like offering a lifeline. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice quiet yet full of concern. As he opened up about his struggles with bullying and academic pressure, Sarah felt a pang of recognition wash over her. She remembered the desperate loneliness of childhood and clung to her own tales of perseverance, recalling moments when kindness from strangers had kept her going. "You know," she said softly, "people can be tough, but kindness will always be stronger." But as she spoke, her heart raced with an unsettling mix of empathy and unease. She remembered the overwhelming responsibilities waiting for her at home, her kids, bills, the nagging worry about their future. Did she have time for this? Could she risk stepping into a young boy's trauma while her own life hung in the balance? Each whisper of the wind felt like a reminder of her growing exhaustion, as though the universe was testing her resolve. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the words poured from her lips, Sarah couldn't shake a nagging fear. What if she didn't have enough strength to help him? What if her words, so passionately shared, came back to haunt her as a reminder of her failures? Outside, the shadows stretched long, echoing the darkness nesting in her thoughts. She battled the suffocating pressure of her own life too, where every dollar mattered more than the last. How could she take on the burden of someone else's pain when her own life felt precarious as it stood? Just as a tentative connection began to form between them, a graveside turmoil threatened to eclipse them both. She noticed the boy's eyes flash with unease as he pulled back, glancing over her shoulder as if sensing the potential disapproval of a distant authority. In that moment, Sarah's own fears surged. What if reaching out cost her? Would the weight of another soul's struggles collapse under the burden of her own? The air hung thick with unresolved tension, the stakes rising with every heartbeat. Little did she know, beyond the trees the boy's father, a distant CEO, watched with a mixture of disbelief and urgency, sensing the stories intertwining in ways that would soon spiral beyond what either of them could comprehend. The evening felt poised on the edge of revelation, leaving both Sarah and Max at an emotional crossroads, each unaware of the impending storm that would challenge everything they believed about life, love, and connection. Sarah's heart thudded in her chest, the unyielding pressure from her personal life colliding with the pain of a boy so vulnerable before her. As she looked at him, she could see her own struggles reflected in his tearful gaze. Yet, uncertainty pooled in her mind like a murky fog. Could she truly afford to invest herself in someone else's heartache when her own was barely stitched together? A deep breath in that, she could manage. Somehow, in witnessing the boy's shattered world, her instincts kicked in, igniting a spark of resolve. "You're brave for sharing this with me," she said softly, seeking to anchor the moment with validation. "But you're not alone. You don't have to carry it all by yourself." As Max nodded slowly, a flicker of hope ignited within him, he flinched at the potential of feeling understood. Sarah's words, though intended to uplift him, caused her to reflect on her responsibilities. Every time she reassured him, she questioned her own capacity to overcome the weight of her life. The chilling night air wrapped tighter around her as her thoughts spiraled. What could she possibly offer that would help him when every day felt like a relentless climb uphill for herself? The worry gnawed at her as she considered her children waiting at home and the deadlines looming over her head. Straining against the tide of her own doubts, she dared herself to stay present. On some instinctual level, she knew that this moment mattered. It could even serve as a lesson, a reminder of why she endured the challenges she faced. "You know, I had tough times growing up too. But each struggle helped me find a part of myself I didn't know existed. You can too." She spoke as much to him as to herself, hoping the optimism would echo back and fill the cracks in her own heart. Yet, fluid certainty mixed with lingering anxiety, the voice that bubbled within her whispered that it might all collapse if she tried to impact his life. Suddenly, she sensed movement in her periphery. The tension in her shoulders tightened as she caught sight of the boy's father lurking just beyond the trees. His tall frame radiated authority, but the pained expression on his face told a different story, a man wrestling with expectations, love, and perhaps regret. The silent watchfulness sent a chill down Sarah's spine. What would he think of her, a stranger, comforting his son? The risk felt monumental. Max instinctively clutched tighter onto her words, an unspoken plea flashing in his eyes, but Sarah felt paralyzed. Was she stepping too far into his life? Should she even be there at that moment? The stakes had become painfully high. The boy's anguish was layered with complications she hadn't anticipated. As Sarah's internal battle raged on, she recognized a pivotal truth: her struggles were intertwined with his, two lives grappling with pain, searching for connection in a world that often seemed coded for isolation. She resolved to protect this fragile bond by reaching out and, for once, serving not as a mother but as someone who understood despair. "I can help you navigate this," Sarah said firmly, emboldened by the sincerity she felt rising within her. The boy nodded, a new determination sparking to life. In that shared understanding, she realized that maybe, just maybe, stepping out of her comfort zone would lead to growth, not just for him, but for herself as well. But before she could take another step, the depth of her situation crashed into her awareness. Could she truly handle the implications of this connection? Tension crackled like electricity in the air as she turned to face Max fully, aware that the moment of truth was approaching, and with it, the profound realization that sometimes, helping others means confronting the very fears that confine us. As she stole another glance at the boy's father, the uneasiness swelled within her, sparking both vulnerability and determination. It was time to confront the reality of that looming storm and decide once and for all how far she was willing to go for a child who wasn't even hers. Would she stand firm and face the repercussions, or would fear pull her back into obscurity, leaving Max alone once again? Sarah felt her pulse racing as she held Max's gaze, ready to make a decision that could alter the course of both their lives. The chill in the air made her acutely aware of her surroundings. The shadows cast by the trees felt more ominous now, as if they were spectators to this pivotal moment. Max's father loomed nearby, his presence both a comfort and a barrier. Could she truly navigate this uncharted territory without tumbling into chaos? "You deserve to be heard," she reaffirmed, tilting her chin slightly to hold Max's eyes steady. For each word she spoke, Sarah wrestled with the weight of her own fears. Beneath her comforting exterior lay an unsettling reality. What did she know about helping others? Could she truly guide a boy through pain when she herself was teetering on the precipice of despair? Max shifted uneasily, eyes darting between Sarah and the shadow of his father. It was a look rife with confusion and hope, both reverberating loudly between them. Sarah's mind raced. This act of kindness was bigger than just a moment of support. It could lead to more, it could demand more from her than she was prepared to give. "You don't need to hide it," she continued, honing in on the tremor in his voice as if grasping a thread pulling them both closer together. "Let us face this together." Accepting her own fragility alongside his vulnerability felt perilous, yet liberating. As heavy as her burdens were, embracing them could forge a deeper connection instead of shrouding them in isolation. She realized this was the kind of moment she had long avoided, grappling always with self-preservation. The boy hesitated, pain flickering in his expression. "But, what if it gets worse?" he whispered, a subtle challenge that resonated with her own worries about wading into murky waters. Uncertainty and fear coiled tightly around her heart. Finally, she decided. "Then we will face that too," Sarah replied decisively, finally letting go of the countless uncertainties that had consumed her thoughts. "Honestly, I've been there. Sometimes it does get worse before it gets better. But if we're willing to work through it, we'll probably find a way to navigate out together." In that instant, she felt a surge of resolve course through her. Every heart-wrenching moment she encountered in her own life was now intertwined with Max's struggle. She realized that perhaps, within those moments of pain, she would discover more about herself than she could ever imagine. Maybe she possessed strength she had yet to tap into, one that could lead her beyond her perceived limitations. At that, the moment fractured, his father emerged from the shadows, stepping forward with cautious authority. The intent hidden behind his poised demeanor sent a jolt through Sarah's system. Were the walls he silently constructed around himself beginning to buckle? Suddenly, their eyes locked, an unspoken conversation beginning to brew. "I need to know what's happening here," he said, voice steady yet tinged with urgency, drawing closer to them. Fear danced within Sarah. Would he see the value in what was unfolding? Would he realize that sometimes, strangers could bridge the gaps that silence had once widened? She recognized this was no longer just about her and Max. This had grown into something that could either deepen their entanglement with pain or transform everything into something entirely new. A whirlwind of uncertainty clouded her mind, but beneath that turmoil, a new resolve emerged. She would no longer shy away from confrontation, however daunting it seemed. "Your son is struggling, and he needs our support," she stated firmly, feeling the weight of her own voice in the crisp air. Max's father paused, brow furrowing, caught between confusion and acknowledgement. The distance began to close, tension crackled as the air thickened with expectation. Would Sarah's words shift the dynamic? Would they allow for an understanding that extended beyond mere survival, into a realm where healing was possible? The moment lingered, carrying with it untold implications. One thing became very clear: it was time not only to confront discomfort, but to recognize the potential for transformation, for both the boy and herself. The road ahead teetered upon the edge of a choice that could either unite them or create an insurmountable divide. Would she step further into this unveiled narrative, trusting that vulnerability might lead to breakthrough rather than backtrack? Sarah's heart thudded in her chest as she braced herself for Max's father's response. The weight of her words hung in the air, demanding acknowledgement. Every breath she took felt heavier, laden with urgency. She could feel the shifting of the atmosphere around them. Max's father was undoubtedly assessing her, and in that scrutiny, Sarah confronted the specter of her own insecurities. In this fraught silence, she sensed the growing potential for connection. Max needed a lifeline, and perhaps at this moment, she could be the one to cast it. But did she have the capacity for such a role? It was no longer just about helping a boy in pain. It was an invitation to confront her own vulnerabilities, to evolve from the limitations she had built around her life like a fortress against pain. "He's my son," Max's father finally responded, his voice steady but low. "You think you can just come in here and give him what he needs without knowing the whole story?" There was a protective edge to his tone. Protective, yes, but was it also defensive? In this charged interaction, Sarah realized a significant truth: if she wanted to effect change in Max's life, she had to extend that same effort toward his father. "I can't know the story unless you let me in," she said, her voice resolute, but within it trembled the echoes of her own fears. The father's expression softened for just a moment, a crack in the facade. Was he revealing a willingness to share? Until now, he had been an intimidating figure, but beneath the surface, she sensed layers of complexity and pain. Sarah took one step closer, the chill in the air dissipating slightly as they bridged the gap between them. Max deserves clarity, and so do you. If you try, just a little try what exactly? To accept help from a stranger? His challenge stirred her. She could feel her own awakening, her capacity to confront discomfort was expanding. A stranger with her own scars, she countered, allowing her eyes to reflect sincerity. Maybe you think you need to shoulder everything alone, but it's okay to lean on someone when things get dark. His brow furrowed again, but this time there was a hint of vulnerability. People like us don't depend on others. The words stung, but they struck a chord deep within her. It solidified her resolve. People like us refuse to bring down the walls that keep others out, Mr. Anderson. But those walls are suffocating. Silence steeped between them. Max stood quietly, his gaze flitting nervously between his father and Sarah, as if he were witnessing a high-stakes negotiation to which he was somehow tethered. She took note of his lips pressed together tightly, a bearing that echoed his internal struggle. Support doesn't mean losing independence, Sarah continued, determined to unravel the tightly wound threads of isolation. It's an invitation for growth, an avenue to embrace the next chapter. You both deserve that. The night air crackled with unspoken potential, it teetered on the brink of something transformative. Just as she thought she could see a flicker of understanding in his eyes, Max's father steeled himself. You don't know us. You don't know what we've been through. And yet, with each word Sarah spoke, she recognized a shift in herself. She was no longer merely an observer enamored with the idea of aiding others, she had become a facilitator of potential narratives, both Max's and her own. Was she prepared to invade the fortress of pain that stood between them? In that pivotal moment, an unexpected realization surged within her. She recognized the power of her own resilience. As uncertainty played its hand in their exchange, she deliberated her next move, balancing the desire to challenge his resistance against the risks of alienation. Could she delve deeper, beyond the surface of his skepticism? Perhaps the true tests of their connection were just beginning, ready to unfurl into a more complex web of vulnerability. Suddenly, she caught sight of a flash of something unyielding in Max's eyes. Was it hope? Or was it the spark of fear reacting to an unknown precipice, just as she had felt earlier? I need your help too, Max whispered nearly inaudibly, breaking the oscillating tension. A tidal wave of emotion crashed over Sarah. In that moment, everything hung in the balance, their futures, their pains, their willingness to confront the truth that had loomed over them for far too long. She tightened her grip on her resolve. They no longer stood alone. But what depths of understanding would they need to reach before they could truly thrive? The pall of silence lingered heavy in the air, yet it carried with it an electric charge. Sarah noticed Max's father shifting on his feet, his posture visibly tense, as if he were teetering on the edge of a precipice. In that moment, fear danced on the line between vulnerability and defensiveness. It was an intricate dance that Sarah had both witnessed and performed countless times in her own life. I understand it's hard, she ventured cautiously, taking a step closer to the heart of their struggle. But the weight of solitude doesn't have to be shouldered alone. Her mind raced, questioning whether her words were merely a feeble attempt to reach out or a genuine call to open the dam of communication that separated them. Max's eyes glimmered with a mixture of longing and anxiety, and for the first time, her own resolve was tested profoundly. Was she prepared to acknowledge that their paths intertwined not just for the sake of helping Max, but for her own healing as well? There was an imperative sense of awakening swirling inside her, a recognition that everything happening in this dimly lit living room was as much about her as it was about them. Maybe we can figure this out, together, she continued, her voice softening even as her heart raced. She felt an uncharacteristic boldness surge within her, daring her to unearth the scarred foundations of her own existence. The glaring realities of her past loomed like shadows beyond the edges of her awareness, tempting her to draw the curtains on her defenses. Max's father sighed heavily, as if exhaling a burden he had kept bottled for too long. Together? He echoed, perplexed. What does that even look like for us? For me? I barely know you. His words struck deep, igniting in her a storm of memories, moments when she had felt so untrusting, so closed off from the world. Would this man stand be a mirror to her own past? The notion both unsettled and inspired her, urging her to peel back the layers and reveal her raw truths. Realizing the power of her vulnerability, Sarah chose to lay bare her authentic self. It looks like two people opening up, becoming imperfectly human together. Did she truly believe that her past scars could help bridge the chasm between them? Everything she had learned about pain surged at the forefront of her thoughts, a rich tapestry of experience she yearned to share. I've spent enough time in my own fortress, believing it would shield me from the world. But I discovered it only confined me. The words hung in the air, a challenge, an invitation interwoven. She saw a flicker of understanding spark in Max's father's eyes. Was he sensing the fissures in his defenses, a yearning to connect buried under layers of pride? Max, too, was watching closely. His youthful expressions reflected a kaleidoscope of anxiety and titillated curiosity. Here lay his chance. This juncture could mark the threshold of something far greater than the pain that had enveloped their lives. Sarah could feel the invisible thread that had begun to weave them together, but would the fabric hold? Momentarily, the weight of the conversation settled like a shroud, both comforting and suffocating. Uncertainty loomed over their interactions, swelling like dark clouds ready to unleash a storm. Inwardly, Sarah waged a battle. Could she truly lead them toward healing? The inherent risk sent shivers down her spine, but there was an undeniable urge to push forward. "What about you?" Sarah asked softly, her eyes locking with his father's. "What do you fear the most when you think of letting someone in?" "Because I see a man caught in the crossfire of his own expectations." She felt raw empathy spilling forth, sculpting her compassion into a force that could cut through the tension. Max's father inhaled sharply, the air thick with emotions begging to surfacing. A moment passed where vulnerability danced dangerously on the precipice, ready to tip. Would he respond with resistance or embrace the possibility of connection? Looking deeply into their eyes, Sarah realized this was more than an interaction, it was a chance. For collective growth, for uncovering their individual capabilities, fears, and ultimately, their shared strength. "Do you trust me enough to take that step?" she whispered, her voice quivering with the weight of honesty. The room held its breath. In that suspended moment, she noticed Max's posture shift. He stood taller, as if finally releasing the burden he carried. Would his father follow suit? But as silence engulfed them once more, the uncertainty loomed heavily, laden with the promise of something transformative about to unfold. What secrets lay undiscovered, lurking behind their facades? Sarah braced herself, knowing the time had come to embrace the unfolding journey or risk losing everything. Sarah's breath hung in the still air, the weight of anticipation thrumming in her veins. She watched as Max's father's brow furrowed, wrestling with the invitation that Sarah had just laid before him. This moment could reshape their existence, but the uncertainty crackled around them like static electricity. "What do I have to lose?" he finally murmured, doubt staining his voice. Those words, laden with frustration and uncertainty, stirred something deep within her, a recognition of the precarious balance of vulnerability and risk. "Everything," she replied softly, eyes steady. "But you might also gain everything if you let someone in." Max's father shifted his gaze to his son, the interplay of their emotions rippling through the room. Sarah felt a sudden swell of hope, each heartbeat an echo of her own long-buried desires for connection. But would he take the leap? Would he unwrap the layers he had built around himself, so similar to her own? Yet just as quickly, the hope was tempered by the crisp chill of reality. She had to confront her own fears too. What if he folded under the pressure? What if her past experiences, her well-trodden pathways of pain, did not translate into the wisdom she believed she possessed? "Let us start small," she suggested, forcing her voice to remain calm. "Tell me about your dreams for Max. What do you wish for him?" There was a deliberate intent behind her words. She had done the work. She understood the liberating power of carving out aspirations in the wreckage of self-doubt. Max's father blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift in focus, an anchor amidst the turmoil raging in his heart. I don't know. I thought I wanted him to be successful, to follow the path I laid out for him. The admission spilled out, raw and jagged. Do you think he is happy? Sarah pressed gently, cautious yet determined to cut through the thicket of expectations and aspirations that threatened to smother them. For a moment, a silence more profound than before enveloped them, as the father grappled with the truth of his words. In that shroud of uncertainty, Max shifted again, drawing breath as though the air had finally opened. His anxious gaze flitted between his dad and Sarah, a delicate fusion of hopeful anticipation and trepidation. I don't know, he finally confessed, the weight of those 3 words ringing with undeniable truth. I just want him to be proud of me. Her heart ached at the revelation. Here stood a man entwined in the very fabric of expectation, both projecting it and laced within it himself. Sarah sensed a profound yearning, a desperate battle raging within him. Suddenly, she recognized a shared thread in their experiences, the uncertainty of not only dreaming for oneself but seeking validation from the world. Maybe pride should come in watching him pursue happiness, regardless of where that leads him, she offered. Real achievement is finding joy in our own skin. Max's father considered her words, a flicker of realization igniting. But even as he looked to his son, Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her. What if he didn't just understand her words, but felt the echo of her own struggles? Have you ever doubted your own worth? He asked, an ember of understanding sparking between them. Every instance of doubt, every whisper of inadequacy she had ever clung to threatened to resurface. Sarah nodded slowly. Every day. The fear of being judged, of not measuring up, it's relentless. It was in this moment that she felt the burgeoning connection, like a lifeline drawn between their vulnerabilities. Max, still observing quietly, captured the shifting energy, his youthful mind grasping the importance of their crossroads. But even as their walls crumbled, uncertainty still loomed. As the conversation veered toward painful confessions, Sarah felt an internal pivot. She was moving past mere facilitator, she was stepping into the role of an architect of their collective healing. The stakes had suddenly raised, compelling her to confront her own lingering shadows while carrying the weight of their revelations. Yet, as Sarah leaned into the swelling hope of transformation, a deeper fear anchored her resolve. What if they failed? The realization struck her hard, a chilling reminder that personal evolution didn't come without sacrifice. The lingering question now lay before her: was she willing to sacrifice her past defenses for a chance to empower another? With Max's father's gaze fixed squarely on her, words teetering on the brink of profound revelation, she knew she had to answer. The time had come to face not just their fears but her own, the next critical decision hovering like the calm before a storm. Would they find the courage to break free from the chains of their perceptions, or were they destined to remain ensnared by their fears? It's time to take the leap, she said, breath less certain yet more fervent than ever. Will you jump with me? But as silence wrapped around them once more, the inevitable question loomed large: what lay beyond the leap into the unknown? The silence felt like a tangible entity, pressing down on them as Sarah's words echoed in the air, reverberating with unanswered questions. She could see the flicker of indecision in Max's father's eyes, a battle between fear and the desire for transformation. This was the moment she had prepared for, and yet, the weight of it felt heavier than she anticipated. Jump where? He finally broke the stillness, a mix of skepticism and curiosity coloring his tone. What if I fall? What if I fail? Not every leap leads to disaster, Sarah countered, her voice steadier than her mind raced. Sometimes, falling teaches us how to get back up stronger. You won't know what's waiting on the other side unless you dare to find out. In that instant, she realized she echoed a truth she had struggled with for years. It was as much a revelation to her as it was for him. Vulnerability was terrifying but necessary, a bridge to the growth she ached for. If he could find the courage to confront his fears, perhaps she could too. Max shifted in his chair, his eyes darting between the two adults, sensing the tension but also the glimmer of hope. "Will you talk to him, Dad?" he ventured, his voice small yet insistent. "I just want you to be okay, both of you." The father looked at his son, a swell of emotion washing over his features. In that moment, the silence broke, revealing not just the barriers built by expectations but also the fragile connection forged through truth-telling. He hesitated, words entangled in his throat. "I don't want to fail you, Max." His admission was a crack in the accumulation of pride and fear. Sarah felt a rush of empathy. She had been there, walking a tightrope of expectations and parental love. And maybe failing is just another part of your journey. It could even be part of his. What if you could show Max that it's okay to chase dreams, even if they look different than what you expected? Max's father nodded slowly, the realization cascading over him. In the face of his own apprehension, he slowly began to unravel the knots of paternal expectation. His duty as a father could evolve into something more meaningful, one rooted in authenticity rather than obligation. "That sounds easier said than done," he replied, almost stunned by the honesty of his own fear. The road to acceptance was not a swift one, but perhaps in articulating it, he had already begun to walk it. "We all have day-to-day battles to fight," Sarah said softly. "It's not about perfection. It's about learning to embrace who we are at any given moment." Her heart thudded in her chest, aware that her own wounds had opened just as much as his. The intensity of their shared vulnerabilities kindled something within her, an instinctual push toward risk. She took a careful breath, feeling the pulse of her personal growth mingling with the hope that had sparked in the room. But as she lent him a warm smile, the thought struck her, was she equipped to nurture this evolving relationship if she was still grappling with her own insecurities? Could she maintain her commitment to healing while battling the specters of her past? With an unsteady breath, she proposed, "What if we all start this journey together? I can't promise the path will always be clear, but I'm willing to help navigate it." The selfless offer sounded positive, brimming with intent, but the truth was, she wasn't sure if she was ready to walk this road herself. Max, sensing the burgeoning potential, leaned forward, eyes filled with childish optimism. "Can we all share what we really want?" he asked. "Can we get to know each other better?" The question hung in the air, a double-edged sword punctuated with excitement and the impending danger of exposure. There lay the potential for revelation, the prospect of facing hidden truths, not just for them but for her too. "What do we want?" Sarah whispered to herself, a looming contemplation pressing on her resolve. Was she ready to dig deeper, to risk uncovering secrets she had masked for years? As the moment stretched, Sarah's pulse quickened with both trepidation and exhilaration. Was this a chance for transformation or a slippery slope into further self-doubt? The tension crackled again, the next step ready to unfold. She looked at Max and his father, both emboldened by the flickers of hope, but she felt the weight of her own journey pressing down harder than before. At that moment, she understood, their next step could unlock not only his healing but perhaps hers too. "Let us start with the truth," she said finally, voice firm despite the uncertainty within. "Are we all ready to take that step?" And as they prepared to plunge into the depths of their shared realities, a new thought loomed: would they find clarity, or plunge deeper into the chaos they had created? The atmosphere shifted palpably as the question hung in the air, a delicate knife poised between vulnerability and fear. Sarah searched Max's father's gaze, seeking an answer that would illuminate their path forward. She could feel the weight of their collective histories, a tangle of regrets, aspirations, and unspoken words threatening to ensnare them. "What do we really want?" It resonated within her, leaving a trail of curiosity and anxiety. She had often articulated desires for herself in fleeting moments of solitude, ambitions dulled by the routine. But in this moment, she was unsure of what she truly craved, further questioning her own worthiness to guide others. Max's father exhaled slowly, a furrow creasing his forehead. "I want to be a good father," he confessed, the words carrying the weight of a lifetime of striving and anguish. But I also want to feel, I don't know, alive? Fulfilled? I've focused so hard on providing that I've lost sight of my own dreams. Max nodded, processing his father's revelation. Me too. I want to be good at baseball, but what if I'm just not good enough? His voice trembled, revealing the thin veneer of courage shielding deep-seated fears. Their honesty sparked a remedy for fear, a moment of shared realization that they were not alone in this battle. Yet, as Sarah listened to their exchanges, her heart raced with an unsettling truth. Could she, too, lay bare her own inner turbulence? I want, the words caught in her throat. I want to feel confident. The admission stung with vulnerability. She almost tasted the bitterness of her unfulfilled aspirations. I've spent so long trying to validate myself through others, and I know that's not how it should be. Max's father studied her, the disbelief melting into understanding. But you're helping us. Doesn't that mean something? Helping you is a step, Sarah said softly, her resolve wavering under the weight of their scrutiny. But it doesn't fill the chasm inside me. A silence followed, potent with unvoiced fears and budding trust. Now was not just a reckoning for Max's father or his son, it was a confrontation for her, laying bare the question of herself. Could she authentically engage in this journey without addressing her own disparities? Then what's your dream? Max ventured, operating like the brave negotiator he was. Perhaps Sarah began, contemplating her response with newfound urgency. It's to create a space where people can connect without fear of judgment. A place where the conversations we're having now feel normal. I want to help others embrace their truths, even if I haven't fully embraced mine. The moment hung, uncharacteristically transformative. As Max's father nodded knowingly, Sarah felt an empowering shift wash over her. In sharing their aspirations, they were weaving an intricate tapestry of mutual support, much like the woven threads she had admired in distant cultures, each distinct, yet together telling a story of human connectedness. But as optimism ignited within her, a creeping fear slithered in. Could she muster the strength to advocate for others while still battling her own insecurities? The dual responsibility felt like a growing burden instead of a freeing opportunity. A thought struck, potent yet terrifying. What if I fail them? She whispered, the confession barely birthed in the still air. Then we learn from it, Max's father replied, his tone assertive despite his own vulnerabilities. As we're learning now. It's okay to stumble. With each revelation, a rumbling of resilience began to stir within Sarah. The fire of collective determination flickered brighter, illuminating corners of her mind long shrouded in doubt. Yet the thought of fully stepping into this role sent tremors through her. Would the mirror of honesty shatter against the weight of expectations? As they sat there, a fragile band of seekers navigating the uncharted waters of their truths, she sensed a precipice. Can we hold each other accountable for our journeys? She asked finally, her voice steadied by conviction. To ensure we don't hide away under layers of expectation or fear again? Yes, the stakes rose. Each month, each conversation might lead to further revelations, exposing unflattering facets while bound by newfound hope. But as the atmosphere filled with tentative resolve, dread lingered. What if the challenge ahead was too great? What if, in peeling back the layers, they stumbled upon the rawest, most painful truths? In that moment, everything felt poised between liberation and chaos. A journey unfurling but brimming with question marks, waiting for the courage to leap into unknown depths. As they sat, hearts pounding, realization dawned, they were not embarking on this quest alone. In vulnerability lay strength, and within each revelation was the promise of evolution. Yet amid hope, shadows loomed. The defining question arose anew: could they embrace each transformation and still find joy, or would the weight of their truths bind them to past failures? The tension electrified the air, igniting an unquenchable anticipation. Each heartbeat drummed a rhythm of uncertainty what awaited them next. The next day, Sarah woke to a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The conversations from the previous evening circled in her mind like leaves caught in a whirlwind. She was now armed with a newfound sense of purpose, yet she felt the weight of ambiguity pressing down on her shoulders. As she prepared coffee, her hands trembled slightly. Could she truly create a space where honesty thrived, especially when her own truths seemed so muddled? Each sip of the hot brew felt like a step onto unsteady ground, leaving her unsure if she would find her footing or fall. The thoughts of accountability echoed. Would Max and his father hold her to a standard she couldn't meet? Determined not to let fear paralyze her, Sarah flipped through her notes from last night, committed to deriving actionable insights from their dialogue. She drafted a plan for their next meetup, envisioning how they might guide one another through discussions on their individual aims and fears. This wouldn't just be about encouraging others, it would also serve as a scaffolding for her own growth. Arriving at the cafe where they were to meet, Sarah noticed the familiar smells of coffee and pastries. The warm environment was comforting, yet the sensation of dozens of eyes on her ignited her doubts. She took a moment to inhale deeply, allowing herself to feel the vibration of that environment, the way encouragement tinged the air with optimism while tethering it to anxiety. Max arrived first, his face lit up with the earnestness that had captivated her from the beginning. "I can't wait for our talk today," he exclaimed, his excitement infectious yet daunting. Sarah grinned, but beneath her smile stirred a cocktail of self-doubt and fear about what Max might expect from her. Once his father joined them, the trio settled into their seats. Small talk and idle pleasantries faded, replaced by a shared understanding that the purpose of their gathering transcended surface interactions. Sarah briefly recounted the conversation from the prior night, noting the key points of vulnerability, courage, and accountability. "What does accountability mean for us?" she ventured, gazing between them for responses. Their eyes danced with curiosity as her heart beat a little faster. "How will we check in with each other? I want to set goals not just for us, but for me too." Max shifted in his seat, eyes narrowing with thought. "Like setting targets? I want to practice baseball, but how can I know I'm improving if I don't have a way to track it?" Nodding, Sarah felt the first tendrils of clarity weaving through her uncertainty. "Exactly. And beyond that, we need a space where questioning ourselves feels safe. We can challenge each other when we falter. Do you think you're ready to put your goals out there?" Max's father asked, a hint of challenge lacing his tone. The abruptness of the question left Sarah momentarily speechless. A rush of insecurity cascaded through her. What if her goals were trivial? What if she bared her dreams only for them to sound foolish against the gravity of their struggles? Taking a breath, she forged ahead. "I want to develop confidence in front of a group. I want to run workshops where people explore their truths. Maybe we can try a small session together right now, if you're up for it." As she spoke, the tension in her chest lessened. The act of sharing their collective fears and ambitions began to create an atmosphere of trust, allowing spaces for openness her heart desperately needed. Max's father raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What if we share our biggest fear and how we might tackle it?" "That sounds like a start." A knot of excitement twisted in Sarah's stomach. Could they really navigate the depths of vulnerability together? If she laid bare her fears, it would not only guide them but also force her to uphold the very commitment to authenticity she wished to model. As they each took turns sharing their fears, from career disappointments to personal limits, a steady evolution took root. In the process, Sarah found herself leaning into discomfort instead of retreating. Every admission seemed to solidify the bond, leaving a trail of revelations that bound their hearts closer. Yet, beneath the burgeoning camaraderie rested a shadow of trepidation. Would this commitment endure when faced with the stark realities of their individual journeys? Would progress falter when the veil of hidden insecurities returned? A new thought crept in as Sarah reflected on the surprising strength that lay within these shared moments. What happens when we push too far into discomfort? Will it break us apart or reinforce our resolve? As they wrapped up the session, she could feel the electric energy swirling between them, an uncharted territory that promised growth but also risked unraveling. Could their newfound foundation withstand the inevitable trials ahead? Each heartbeat electrified the air, poised at the edge of transformation, hanging precariously as they braced themselves for the unfolding chapters of their journeys together. A few weeks later, the cafe buzzed with the energy of familiar faces, a vibrant testament to the progress they had collectively made. Sarah entered, her spirit lifted by the warm smiles that greeted her from Max and his father. Each meeting had solidified their bond, a tapestry woven with shared struggles, fears, and, most importantly, hopes. "Ready for today?" Max chimed, his youthful enthusiasm contagious. "Absolutely." Sarah's smile felt genuine now, a comforting reminder of how far she'd come. When she glanced at Max's father, the weight of expectation etched on his face seemed lighter, transformed by the courage he'd shown. Together, they had traversed difficult conversations that pried open the layers binding their experiences, a communal healing mirrored in their growth. Today's session would focus on tangible goals, not just aspirations but actionable steps to continue the shared momentum. As they settled into their usual corner, the ambience enveloped them, creating a cocoon where vulnerability felt not only safe but empowering. "I want to start practicing with my baseball team," Max declared, his determination aflame. "And I want to set a tangible goal, maybe pitch 10 times a week." "That sounds great, Max. We can help you track it," Sarah encouraged, her voice infused with confidence. The allowing nature of the moment acted like a shield, wrapping them in support as he shared. Max's father, Tim, looked contemplatively at his son. "What if we also set a family game day? It could be fun and a chance for you to let loose," he suggested, a rare flicker of excitement dancing in his eyes. "That would be awesome." Max beamed, the possibilities ahead expanding like the horizon in front of him. As their conversation flowed, Sarah felt an energetic warmth rise within her. It fueled her aspiration to finally commit to her own goals. She was ready, truly ready, to share what had previously remained tangled within her heart. "While we're talking goals, I'd like to share mine," Sarah began, her hands steady yet a touch hesitant. "I want to facilitate a workshop focused on emotional connection and storytelling within communities. I want to cultivate spaces where people can be their most authentic selves with one another." Max's enthusiasm pulsed through the table. "That sounds amazing. How can we help?" His eyes sparkled with innocent determination, an unwavering encouragement that echoed deep inside Sarah. "I think, as crazy as it sounds, starting with a small gathering of just us could help pave the way." Her voice was filled with excitement mingled with the inevitable trepidation. "We can explore our stories together." Tim nodded, a contemplative smile spreading across his face as realization settled in. "It sounds like an incredible idea, Sarah. And you know what? I could talk about my own challenges with being authentic in the corporate world, opening up to the people I work with." Each of them was facing their vulnerabilities head-on, leveraging the momentum they had earned through honesty. They were cultivating a fertile ground for growth, planning to stretch beyond their comfort zones, ready to transform the very fabric of their connections into something profound. As they continued crafting their plan, the rhythm of the conversation morphed into a whirlwind of creativity and purpose. Sarah's heart swelled with deep-rooted pride, not for herself alone but for them as a unit, the culmination of shared journeys, parental intentions, and aspirations that rippled across their lives. In the weeks that followed, their workshop materialized. Stepping into the community center filled Sarah with a familiar flutter of nerves, yet this time, they were accompanied by a rush of anticipation, a certainty that they were no longer just supporting one another but paving the way for others. Together, they set the stage for an exploration unlike any other. As new faces arrived, Sarah felt seeds of anxiety seed ground to an empowering surge of confidence. The laughter, the stories woven around the circle, and the shared vulnerability painted a rich tapestry of connection. She witnessed the transformation unfolding not only within herself but around her. Every honest moment ignited a spark that unified their experiences. Through every story shared, through every laugh exchanged, the wall of isolation that had once caged her began to dissolve, replaced with a sense of belonging. They embraced the challenge of being seen and heard. With each workshop, Sarah solidified her role not just as a facilitator but as a beacon of hope. Weeks turned into months, and with each gathering, they filled their cups with shared experiences. Sarah reveled in her newfound ability to uplift and connect, her journey reflected in the empowerment of those she served. The moment she stepped out from behind the barriers shrouding her life, she discovered not only her purpose but a recognition of her own strength. What if I fail? She had once asked herself, resonating with the fears that lingered in the air like ghosts. But those very fears transformed into triumphs as she learned that every misstep was an opportunity, a chance to rise stronger. And in the remarkable tapestry they had woven, individual growth manifested into collective transformation. Their support for one another was no longer just about survival, it became about thriving, accepting the complexities of each other's journeys and crafting success hand in hand. With confidence radiating from every interaction, Sarah stood at the pinnacle of her journey, fully committed to both self and others. She now embodied the belief that authentic connection could emerge from the most unexpected moments, harnessed within shared vulnerabilities. As Sarah took a breath, feeling the palpable energy around her, she realized something profound: healing required community, and in building that community, she had firmly established herself not just as a mother, a friend, a facilitator but as a catalyst for change. The workshop concluded, but the journey was merely beginning. Together, they looked ahead, not just toward their dreams but toward a future built on resilience, authenticity, and unyielding connection. This was transformation, the kind of triumph that would forever change how they approached life's challenges and how they embraced their individual truths with unwavering courage. And as Sarah breathed in the success swirling around her, the laughter, connections, and shared victories, she knew one thing for certain: they were all in this together. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion below. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful ending. Don't wait even one more second to show your support.